February 23, 1995. Inside one of the oldest banks on earth, panic was spreading. Phones wouldn't stop ringing. Executives were screaming across trading floors. Millions of dollars had vanished overnight. And somewhere in Singapore, the man responsible was already gone. No armed robbery, no hackers, no masked criminals, just one trader, 28 years old. And before this week was over, he would destroy a bank that had survived for 233 years, a bank so powerful it once handled money for kings and governments. But the most terrifying part? Nobody inside the bank realized the disaster was happening until it was already too late. Because hidden deep inside the system was an account that should never have existed. And inside that account was a secret worth more than $1 billion. This is the story of Nick Leeson, the trader who brought down Barings Bank. But to understand how one man destroyed an empire, you first need to understand how he fooled everyone around him. Nick Leeson didn't look dangerous. He wasn't some criminal mastermind. He wasn't a billionaire genius from Wall Street. He was just an ordinary guy from England. Average background, average education, nothing extraordinary. But Nick understood something most people didn't. In banking, confidence matters more than truth. He learned quickly, worked quietly, and gained trust fast. By the early 1990s, Barings Bank saw him as a rising star, so they sent him to Singapore, a decision that would eventually destroy the entire company. At first, everything looked incredible. Nick was making millions. Executives in London loved him. Profits were exploding. Bonuses were growing. Inside the company, Nick Leeson was becoming untouchable. But behind the scenes, he had already started hiding something. Something small at first, a mistake, a loss, one trade that went wrong, and instead of admitting it, he buried it inside a secret account. And that account was about to become a financial graveyard. In most banks, traders are watched constantly. Every trade, every transaction, every dollar. But Barings made one catastrophic mistake. They gave Nick control over both sides of the system. He could place trades and supervise the people checking those trades. It was the perfect setup for disaster, because now Nick could hide almost anything. Whenever he lost money, he moved the losses into the secret account. Then he placed bigger trades to recover it. At first, it worked, which made things even worse. The bank kept rewarding him. More money, more freedom, more trust. Meanwhile, the hidden losses kept growing quietly in the background. Thousands, then millions, then tens of millions. But nobody stopped him, because officially, Nick Leeson still looked like a genius. And the deeper he sank, the more impossible the truth became to admit. But in January 1995, everything changed, because nature itself was about to destroy his final chance of escape. January 17, 1995, Japan. At 5:46 in the morning, an earthquake hit the city of Kobe. Buildings collapsed instantly. Highways twisted apart. Thousands of people died. And within hours, financial markets around the world began falling. For most traders, it was chaos. For Nick Leeson, it was the beginning of the end. Because he had secretly bet enormous amounts of money that the Japanese market would stay stable. Now the market was crashing, and every second it fell, his losses multiplied. Millions disappeared overnight, then more, then more. At this point, most people would stop. Most people would confess. Nick did the opposite. He doubled down. He started making even bigger bets, bigger risks, bigger trades, bigger lies, because now he believed only one thing could save him: a miracle. But financial markets don't care about hope, and within days, the losses became too large to hide. By February 1995, Nick Leeson was no longer trading normally. He was gambling for survival. Every morning he walked into the office knowing the bank was bleeding money. But nobody in London understood how serious it had become. Why? Because Nick controlled the reports they were reading. He sent fake numbers, fake profits, fake confidence, and somehow the system believed him. The hidden losses crossed hundreds of millions of dollars. Then something terrifying happened. Nick stopped trying to win. He started trying to delay collapse. There's a difference. At that point, he knew the bank might already be doomed. But if he could keep the illusion alive one more day, maybe something would change. Maybe the market would recover. But the market kept falling, and the losses exploded past 800 million pounds, more than $1 billion today. One man had accidentally created a financial bomb powerful enough to erase a 233-year-old institution, and on February 23rd, he finally ran. But before disappearing, Nick Leeson left behind 2 words: "I'm sorry," and when executives uncovered the truth, panic turned into horror. Inside Barings Bank, executives couldn't believe what they were seeing. The numbers looked impossible. How could one trader lose this much money? How had nobody noticed? But the truth was worse than the losses themselves. The system had failed completely. Warning signs existed for months. Auditors raised concerns. Employees noticed irregularities. Questions were ignored. Because the profits blinded everyone. As long as money was flowing in, nobody wanted to ask difficult questions. Now it was too late. Barings Bank was effectively bankrupt. A company older than many countries, destroyed in weeks. Soon after, the bank was sold for just £1. £1. That's all a 233-year-old empire was worth in the end. And while the financial world watched the collapse unfold, Nick Leeson was traveling across Asia, trying to escape the consequences of what he had done. But his freedom wouldn't last long, because the entire world was now looking for him. After fleeing Singapore, Nick moved through multiple countries: Thailand, Malaysia, Germany. But everywhere he went, the story followed him. The media turned him into an international headline: the rogue trader, the man who destroyed Barings, and eventually authorities caught him in Germany. When he was arrested, the image shocked people. This wasn't some terrifying criminal mastermind. He looked exhausted, broken, almost ordinary, which made the story even more disturbing, because it proved something dangerous. Sometimes history isn't destroyed by monsters. Sometimes it's destroyed by ordinary people making desperate decisions. Nick was eventually extradited to Singapore and sentenced to prison. But even after the trial ended, the bigger question remained. Was Nick Leeson the real problem? Or was the banking system itself already broken? The fall of Barings Bank became one of the most important warnings in financial history, not because one man lied, but because an entire institution allowed those lies to survive. The disaster exposed something terrifying about modern finance. Systems built on trust can collapse silently, especially when profits are involved. Nick Leeson didn't hack computers. He didn't steal cash with weapons. He didn't mastermind some impossible conspiracy. He simply exploited weaknesses that already existed: greed, overconfidence, lack of oversight, and the belief that success means safety. Even today, those same weaknesses still exist inside financial systems around the world, which is why the story still matters decades later. Because the collapse of Barings wasn't just about one bank. It was about human nature. And human nature rarely changes. Barings Bank survived wars, economic crashes, political revolutions, but it could not survive hidden risk inside its own walls. And the man who destroyed it wasn't a genius criminal. He was just a trader who kept making bigger bets, hoping the next one would save him. It never did. And by the time the truth surfaced, an empire was already gone. Nick Leeson lost more than $1 billion. But the real story is how nobody stopped him before it was too late.